All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you ever so much for joining us here today. Today's shiur should be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gabriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and the Refuah Shalema Bekarov, Meshalom ben Sarah Rachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today we are on page 108 in the art scroll for those who are following along. And today we are going to continue what we started talking about yesterday about choosing an occupation based on bitachon. And today we're going to go into a little bit understanding as to what we started talking about, Hashem giving us abilities, Hashem giving us gifts, and using those abilities, those character traits that Hashem gives us in order to choose the job, the business, the industry to get involved in order to do our ishtalis, to provide our families, and to be a good yid. And so today, Rav Av notes that the phenomenon of different people having natural inclinations for different forms of obtaining a livelihood has a parallel in the animal kingdom. So we know that Hashem, just like a human being, Hashem gives us the capabilities to survive. Hashem also gives animals things to survive. You guys may have watched the Discovery Channel at some point, and you know that the very basic different animals have different prints in order to blend in properly, stuff like that. Certain animals are faster in order to be able to, again, protect themselves. And so we're going to talk about that for a minute and then bring it back to humankind. So he says like this, we find the same thing with other living things. For example, Hashem put into the cat the instinct to catch a mouse. And the hawk with the instinct to hunt the type of birds that are suitable for it to eat. And the deer with the instinct to catch snakes. Over here it talks about, actually gives the deer horns. And it's interesting over here because over here you see it's actually most deer, if not all, are eat vegetation. They don't eat animals, creatures, living things like that. And so what Rav Av is alluding to over here is that not only does he give animals the ability to sustain themselves, the ways to hunt, but also gives the ways to protect themselves, using their horns or their hooves in order to trample predators of theirs. There are also some types of birds that catch only fish and are sustained by eating them. Likewise, in the nature of each and every species of animal, there is an inclination and craving for a particular type of vegetation or living. And what he's trying to show you over here, that not only are human beings that Hashem give us gifts or desires or a likeness to a certain type of line of work or a hobby or something like that might produce money. Hobby might be the wrong thing because hobbies don't produce money usually, but you get the idea. That was implanted into the species as a means for acquiring its suitable sustenance. And we see further that the attributes of each animal's body and limbs are uniquely suited to be able to obtain that thing which serves as its food, meaning that Hashem gives each animal, if they know that it's a type of animal that doesn't hunt, it might not give it the ability to hunt animals. It gives it the ability to have good teeth in order to chew on vegetation better, or whatever that is. Such as the long bill and long legs of the bird that catches fish. For example, the wading birds, such as the stork and the heron, they have a big either a big beak or a big chin in order to capture more food in it, which allow it to stand in the shallow water, dive its beak deep below the surface, and spear the fish that are there. And again, it's showing that Hashem gave them the ability, the attributes, in order to sustain themselves, and that's what they need. Very similar. We live in Tom's River. A lot of us live in Jersey. There's a lot of birds out here. Very famous. One of the most beautiful birds here is the hummingbird, and it has a long beak. And we know that it eats the sap from a flower it's like a long cone-shaped kind of flower. And now we understand that because this hummingbird needs that sap from that flower, the only way to get that is if it has a long beak. And that's why Hashem gives it that long beak. And the strong teeth and claws of a lion which enable to kill and devour its prey. V'sakranim lashoy v'la'ayil, and the horns of the ox and the deer. And this goes back to the elucidation that he said earlier, that the horns of the ox and the deer, even though they're vegetative animals, they only eat vegetation, but they use that for protection in order to help themselves when they're being attacked by a predator. And an animal whose diet consists of solely of vegetation was not given the tools for catching and tearing apart other animals. A cow, a horse, doesn't have these huge fangs like a lion has. A lion needs that in order to hunt, in order to pull down its prey, to tear it apart. In sum, he says, Hashem supplied each creature with the resources it needs to obtain the form of sustenance that is uniquely suited for it. Now, he says, along the same lines, Timtza midas b'nei adam v'gufoseim mechunais l'schoros u'malochos. You find that different people's talents and physiques are designed for certain business endeavors and occupations over others. What he's trying to say over here is, just like in the animal kingdom, everyone has a different type of prey they need in order to survive, and everyone has a different capability, a different strength, to hunt or to eat or whatever it is, to protect themselves. What he's trying to say, even though we are one human race, one humankind, but we are unique in differences. And we all are gravitate towards different means of commerce. And Hashem gives us those abilities in order to give us the ability to sustain ourselves. He gives us those character attributes so that we can sustain ourselves. Likewise, like by the lion, he gives them the big fangs so he can eat meat, so he can hunt. And so every single person, Hashem gives them different attributes in order to be able to survive. Some people have the talent and physical strength necessary to succeed in one type of work, while others have different talents and strengths suitable in different types of work. Therefore, someone who finds within his character and nature a desire for a particular occupation over others, and his body is fit for that occupation, and he is capable of bearing the strain it entails, meaning he finds like that perfect job, that perfect business industry that he should get involved in. He understands it, he's perfect, he's built for it, he has the mental aptitude to do it, he gets into it. Should seek out that occupation and make it the means of obtaining his sustenance. And he's bringing over, he's letting you know, even though we said Hashem can provide you sustenance in any shtadlus that you do, but Hashem is giving you those attributes in order to make it easier for you, in order to make you want to do it. You need to want to do a shtadlus. Sometimes when you are involved in a job or an industry that you totally despise, you don't want to get up every single morning to go to work. And so Hashem gives us those abilities, and so he's saying, choose the industries that fit you. So you should want to get up every single morning early and start your day, have a schedule, get to work, do your shtadlus, do avodas habayit. V'yisbal misika umrusa. And once he has settled on a particular occupation, at that point he should be both its sweetness and its bitterness. An example, both the positive and the negatives that come with every occupation. There's no such thing as an occupation that only has good, or no such thing as an occupation that only has bad, and we're going to get into that. He should not become disillusioned with his chosen occupation when he suffers setbacks in that occupation and his livelihood is withheld from him on occasion. Rather, he should trust in Hashem that he will provide him with his sustenance all the days of his life. What he's saying is very simple. You get involved in an industry because it fits your criteria. You're built for it, you understand it, you love it, and you feel like you can succeed in it. You did step one in your status of finding the right job. You did finding a job with bitachon. You found it. Now, every business, no secret, has its ups and downs. Has good times, has bad times. And even in the good times, there are days where they're tough and there are days where they're easier. And there's no such thing as easy street for any one particular industry. And there's no such thing as one industry that's always suffering. There's always a mix of both. And he says over here that every industry has both wealthy and poor. There's no such industry that only has one type. It doesn't exist. But he does caution, he says, if you find yourself in a position where you're in a business or in a job that is a dead end, you see it's just not going anywhere, or the company is failing, constantly failing, it says, yes, you should do your shtadlus to change that. It doesn't mean that you should sit around in a failing business and just say, hey, I'm doing my ishtadlus. You have to. Part of the ishtadlus at that point is to close up shop, move on, go on to something else. As bitter as it might be, and it's very tough. People in general, a lot of people go down with businesses because they can't give it up, But he's saying over here, you got to be careful from that, and therefore, changing an occupation is okay when you're faced with those kind of struggles, when it's really difficult and it's not going anywhere. But he cautions and he says, don't just jump around from job to job just because. Do your part first, do your research, find out what's built for you, and then get involved in it. And it's going to have good and bad times, no doubt. Hopefully you're going to have a lot more good days than you have bad days. But at the end of the day, you're going to have struggles of growth as every other business has. So don't just start jumping ship when things get a little bit tough. Likewise, in our day-to-day in life, which is our primary reason we're here. Our shtadlus is to put food on our table, but we're here for a reason. When we face tough times, as we are doing so today, in many industries along the entire universe, we have to understand, and he says over here in the Cliff Notes, that sometimes Hashem puts people into a particular industry because he feels like he needs to punish them in some degree at some point. And just because you find yourself as part of the wake of that punishment, it doesn't mean that it's meant for you. And you'll get through it. And today's days, we see that. A lot of us are having a difficult time just with life in general, not with our jobs necessarily, although those are challenging, but life in general. And we have to remember that life, just like your job, has good times and it has difficult times. And we have to have that mindset to be able to get through it. We have to have that mindset, don't jump ship. Don't give up. You still have to hold your belief strong. You have to continue doing what you're doing because that is what Hashem wants you to do. And understanding that there's always going to be an easier time and there's going to be a difficult time. But in the end, when you look back and you count 10, 20, 30 years of your life, you do remember the difficult times. But what you cherish is the outcome of those difficult times. I plowed through it. This is what I came out with. This is what my family looks like. This is what I've become. And that's what you need to take to the table, both in your job, for your shtadlus, for putting food on the table, and both in your own personal being, in your heart, in order for you to get by, so that you can come home every single day with a smile, and to be able to smile to your wife and to your children, and to love them with a full heart. You need to work on that part, because if you don't, it's going to make it a lot harder on yourself, on your spouses, on your family, and it's not going to be a fun trip. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today, and I love you all.